Voltal stood silently in the observation chamber, eyes narrow-slitted beneath his heavy, chitinous brow. His many-faceted eyes scanned the array of monitors flickering before him. Each screen displayed the vitals and behavior patterns of the test subjects housed in the containment cells below. The Veridians had come to Terra carrying hope to cure what they perceived as humanity's greatest curse aggression. Perhaps, through biochemical manipulation, they could tame the chaos inherent in the human genome. Vashdor, the lead scientist, leaned over the console beside Voltal, fingers dancing across holographic controls to bring up a live feed of Subject 7, a tall human male with dark hair and stormy eyes. The man paced his enclosure, muscles coiled like a predator even in captivity. His expression was unreadable, yet beneath it simmered the flickers of something primal, something that refused to be quelled. "Look at his heart rate," Vashdor murmured in the clipped, precise language of the Veridian scientific caste. "It's elevated, but within acceptable parameters. The pacifiers are functioning as designed. The aggression markers in his amygdala are suppressed by 47% since the last inoculation." Voltal's antenna twitched thoughtfully, yet he remains restless. The suppression is biochemical, but this restlessness, it is more than mere neural impulse. It is will. Vashdor nodded slowly, a hint of unease creeping into his voice. Human aggression is not a simple neurochemical imbalance. It is woven into their survival instincts. We alter the chemistry, but the instinct adapts. It finds new ways to manifest. The chamber was silent save for the soft crackling of the communication lines and the distant sounds of the test wing. A low murmur of metallic doors sliding, the faint shuffling of feet, occasional muffled commands exchanged between human guards and Veridian technicians. The air held a sterile chill, but beneath it, a latent tension pulsed, thickening the atmosphere like a coming storm. Voltal's gaze drifted from the monitors to the window overlooking the containment cells. Below, the humans were grouped in small clusters, their postures guarded, but occasionally flickering with sudden bursts of energy. The harsh white walls of their cells seemed almost too sterile, an unnatural cage attempting to contain the wild tempest of human nature. Their eyes, so dark and focused, betrayed a simmering fire that no chemical agent could fully extinguish. "I want to observe them directly," Voltal finally said, voice low and resolute. "Our data is insufficient. The Veridian mind may understand biochemistry, but it cannot yet comprehend the human spirit." Vashdor regarded him with a cautious nod. "Very well. They are unpredictable, even sedated. The elevator ride down was a descent from the antiseptic heights of science into the raw, pulsing heart of human behavior. The walls shimmered with a cold blue light, casting eerie reflections on Voltal's armored exoskeleton. He inhaled deeply, the recycled air tasting faintly of ozone and something more, something alive, dangerous. The scent of Earth's flora filtered faintly through the ventilation, a whisper of a world both ancient and untamed. The containment wing was a labyrinth of narrow corridors and reinforced cells. Each chamber was sealed by thick, transparent barriers, behind which subjects were confined individually or in pairs. The humans moved like caged animals, but there was intelligence in their eyes, a spark of defiance. Voltal's multi-jointed fingers traced the surface of one cell's glass. Inside, a woman with copper, red hair sat cross-legged, her gaze locked on him. A commander among her people, her presence radiated a calm strength that contrasted sharply with the restlessness of her comrades. Even in captivity, She exuded leadership, a beacon amid chaos. He watched as she shifted subtly, muscles tense beneath her uniform. The biochemical agents should have dulled her reflexes, yet her eyes remained sharp, calculating. Nearby, another subject, a young soldier named Brandon Patel, clenched his fist so tightly that his knuckles whitened. His jaw was set in determined defiance, and though his movements were sluggish, they were purposeful. Suddenly, a loud metallic clang echoed through the corridor, a signal alarm. Voltal's head snapped toward the sound, antennae alerting to an unexpected disturbance. The soft hum of machinery was punctuated by the sharp crackle of communication static. Guards shouted terse commands. Footsteps thundered down the hall. A rush of disturbance rippled through the containment wing. The test subjects had sensed the anomaly, their suppressed instincts flaring despite the biochemical shackles weighing on their minds. Voltal's own breath caught in his throat, a rare response for his kind, attuned as they were to the subtleties of stress and threat. Through the observation windows, he saw the impossible unfold. One by one, the humans began to move with a speed and coordination that defied their supposed sedation. The biochemical inhibitors, designed to dampen aggression and reflexes, faltered as the prisoners surged forward. The reinforced barriers shook under the force of their assault. Jessica's voice rang out, firm and commanding even over the chaos. "Positions! We're getting out of here!" Voltal's multi-faced eyes widened in realization. This was no spontaneous outburst of rage. This was a calculated rebellion, a deliberate breach executed with precision and unity. The Veridians had underestimated the resilience of the human mind, the adaptability of their aggression. When faced with captivity, the air filled with the sharp scent of ozone and burning circuits as security systems overloaded and failed. The piercing alarms battled with the shouts and cries of humans and Veridians alike. Voltal's heart rate climbed, his instincts screaming for order amidst the unfolding anarchy. He moved swiftly, exoskeleton muscles propelling him through the corridor toward the command center. His communicator crackled with panicked reports. Locks disengaging, containment doors opening, security teams overwhelmed. The test subjects were escaping. Through the translucent barriers, Vol caught a glimpse of Brandon Patel, his face smeared with grime, but eyes blazing with fierce determination. The young soldier's movements were erratic but effective, smashing a control panel with brute force to unlock the next chamber. Jessica's figure appeared beside him, steadying him with a firm hand. Together, they spearheaded the charge, breaking free from their pharmacological chains. Voltal's mind raced to process. The biomedicines designed to suppress aggression had not pacified these humans. Instead, they had sharpened their resolve, igniting a fire beneath the surface. The corridor trembled as the last of the containment barriers fell. Veridian guards scrambled to contain the chaos, but it was too late. The prisoners flooded into the hallways. The cured aggression now raging unchecked, not as blind fury, but as organized, purposeful rebellion. Voltal's thoughts churned. The ancient beacons scattered throughout the galaxy had warned of giants sleeping on Terra, beings of immense power and unpredictability. The Veridians had dismissed these warnings as myth and superstition. Now, as the humans broke free, those warnings echoed like a cruel prophecy fulfilled. He realized then the true nature of human aggression. It was not a disease to be cured. It was a survival mechanism, a spark of defiance threaded through millennia of struggle and endurance. To suppress it was to awaken something far more dangerous, a force that could no longer be contained or controlled. The corridors grew darker as the power flickered amidst the turmoil. The compound's sterile calm shattered, replaced by the raw cacophony of unleashed humanity. Voltal steadied himself, antennae twitching in the chilling realization that this was only the beginning. The Veridian Biologics had tried to cure human aggression. Instead, they had unleashed the storm. And the storm was coming for them all. The dim glow of the Veridian outpost flickered faintly against the creeping darkness of the Terran night. Voltal stood at the edge of the observation deck, his multi-faceted eyes reflecting the labyrinthine jungle sprawling beneath the colony's surface. The air was thick with the mingled scents of damp earth and alien flora, a sensory overload that clung to his exoskeleton like a second skin. The hum of distant insectoid calls seeped through the reinforced glass, an eerie symphony that set a dissonant backdrop for the events unfolding below. Voltal's gaze was fixed on the dimly lit containment pens nestled within the compound, cluster of reinforced capsules designed for the so-called aggression cure. Trials. The Veridian scientists had long theorized that the violent impulses driving the Terran species could be subdued or even eradicated through precise genetic manipulation. The mission was ambitious, perhaps even reckless, but progress had been steady if slow. Inside the sterile laboratory, Vashdor moved with meticulous purpose, his clawed fingers manipulating delicate nanotech instruments with practiced precision. The alien scientist's mind churned with data streams, each line of code representing a step closer to taming the unruly human psyche. Yet beneath his clinical detachment lurked a simmering unease, a subtle discordance that no amount of logic or protocol could wholly suppress. The test subjects, humans bred in captivity for their violent tendencies, had been the first to undergo the experimental treatment. They were confined within the isolation chambers, their bodies monitored by an array of sensory devices, attuned to every heartbeat, every neural impulse. The idea was to observe the gradual fading of aggression, sharp reactions dulled to soft murmurs of compliance. Instead, what unfolded was something entirely unforeseen. A sudden tremor rippled through the compound, a jarring pulse that startled even the stoic Vashdor. Monitors flickered erratically as the containment fields around the human subjects surged with an inexplicable energy. The sensors detected a rise in bioelectrical activity far beyond anticipated levels. Voltal's antenna twitched reflexively, a primal warning instinct awakened. Then came the silence, a thick, suffocating pause that swallowed every noise, every breath. The doors of the containment cells exploded outward in jagged showers of reinforced glass and metal. The humans, once restrained, docile figures, erupted into frantic motion. Their bodies, lithe yet powerfully built, moved with feral grace and desperate determination. The scent of adrenaline and raw muscle filled the air, mingling with the sterile antiseptic that now seemed impotent against the awakened fury. Voltal's heart thrummed in unison with the alien cadence of the escape. The human's eyes burned with an intensity that defied the calming effects of the treatment. They were not subdued. Vashdor's voice crackled over the comms, taut with disbelief. "Commander, the subjects are breaching containment. They exhibit resistance beyond any known parameters." Voltal turned sharply, the weight of command settling heavy on his shoulders. "Containment Protocols Delta 7. We must understand what we are facing." The corridors erupted into chaos as alarms blared, red lights bathing the sterile halls in a violent glow. The humans moved with uncanny coordination, slipping through the labyrinthine passages like shadows cast by a flickering flame. Their skin, pale and marked with the faint scars of experimentation, gleamed with a sheen of sweat and determination. Jessica Patel, the lead human commander and one of the primary test subjects, led the charge. Her mind was a tempest of conflicting impulses, rage tempered by calculated resolve, fear tempered by primal survival. Every muscle in her body screamed with the remnants of the conditioning meant to suppress her aggression, now shattered like fragile glass. Behind her, Brandon Patel, a younger soldier, and her brother, kept pace. His gaze darted nervously, muscles coiled to spring, but his trust in Jessica's leadership was unwavering. Together, they navigated the maze of cold steel and blinking consoles, the memory of confinement fueling their drive. Voltal's contingent of Veridian enforcers moved swiftly to intercept. Clad in iridescent armor that shimmered with refracted light, they advanced with disciplined precision. The Veridian soldiers were unfamiliar with the raw, unpredictable energy radiating from the humans. Each encounter was a flash of motion and impact, a brutal test of reflex against ferocity. The first clash shattered the sterile calm of the laboratory corridors. A blast of energy from a Veridian plasma rifle scorched the air, but the human subjects dodged with uncanny agility. One soldier lunged, claws extended, aiming for a disabling strike. Jessica twisted away in a blur, her body absorbing the blow with a grunt of pain but no surrender. The air vibrated with the thundering cadence of battle, the clash of alien technology against primal human tenacity. Voltal's mind raced, cataloging every movement, every tactic. The humans did not fight like a disorganized mob. They fought with instinct honed by years of survival, a savage elegance that belied their recent captivity. Amidst the chaos, Voltal's eyes locked onto Jessica Patel. She was the nexus of this defiant force, a beacon of unyielding flesh against the cold, calculated might of the Veridian Empire. Her breath came in ragged bursts, her muscles trembling with exertion and pain. Yet she did not falter. The corridors narrowed, forcing close quarters combat. The scent of ozone and burnt flesh mingled with the metallic tang of blood. Voltal's voice was steady but urgent through the comms. Focus on subdual, do not kill. But each attempt to subdue was met with explosive resistance. The humans' bodies seemed to absorb damage in defiance of reason. A soldier struck down moments before now surged back to their feet, eyes blazing with a ruthless determination that transcended biology. Vashdor, monitoring the events remotely, furrowed his brow. The genetic modifications were supposed to dampen such responses, to rewrite the neural pathways that drove violence. Yet the data streams told a different story, an adaptive resilience, a regenerative tenacity neither predicted nor understood. From the observation deck, Voltal's thoughts spiraled into the depths of the ancient warnings. The beacons scattered across the galaxy, relics of a long, lost civilization, had spoken of dangers sleeping beneath Terra's surface, sleepers of immense strength and intractable will. The Veridians had dismissed these as myth, vestiges of a bygone era. Now, as the humans stormed through the compound, the truth became undeniable. This was no ordinary prey. The flesh of Terra's inhabitants was unyielding to taming, their spirits uncrackable under pressure. Jessica and her group surged forward, breaking through the final barriers toward the external airlock. The night beyond was thick with the scent of wild growth and ancient soil. Freedom was close, but so was the pursuit. Voltal's command voice cut through the turmoil. Surround the exit. No escape. But the humans had already anticipated this. Jessica's eyes flicked to the side, signaling a change in direction. The group veered toward an emergency maintenance shaft, narrow and treacherous. The Veridian soldiers hesitated, momentarily thrown off by the sudden shift. Inside the cramped tunnel, the air was stale and thick with mechanical residue. The humans moved with exhaustion etched into each movement, but their resolve only hardened. Jessica's mind raced through every possible outcome: escape, capture, death. None seemed certain, but survival demanded relentless effort. Brandon stumbled, his breath hitching as pain seared through his leg. Jessica reached out, steadying him with a fierce grip. The bond of shared history, of blood and battle, was a silent anchor amid the storm. Behind them, the dull thud of pursuit drew ever nearer. Voltal's squad was closing in, their armored boots echoing in the confined space. The humans pressed on, forced to confront their own limits. Suddenly, the tunnel narrowed to a precipitous drop. Jessica's eyes widened. A rusted ladder descended into shadow, the faint sound of water below. One by one, they began the descent. The ladder groaned under weight and strain, each rung a testament to fragile hope. Jessica's hand trembled but held firm, the scent of damp stone and ancient moisture filling her nostrils. At the bottom, a subterranean cavern opened before them, a hidden reservoir of pristine water, shimmering with bioluminescent algae. The sight was surreal, otherworldly, a stark contrast to the sterile nightmare above. The humans paused, breaths heavy, muscles screaming for rest. But the danger was far from over. Voltal's voice resonated through the comms, brittle with frustration. They have entered the underlevels. Environmental protocols activate. Seal all exits. Jessica's mind snapped back to the immediate threat. The Veridians were relentless, their technology designed to crush rebellion with merciless efficiency. But the humans had something no algorithm could predict. The unyielding flesh, the pulse of Terra itself coursing through their veins. The cavern shuddered faintly, a deep rumble echoing from the rock walls. Jessica felt it beneath her feet, the restless heartbeat of the planet. Instinct whispered warnings older than memory. As the Veridian enforcers sealed the upper exits, the humans pressed deeper into the subterranean labyrinth, disappearing into the shadows where ancient forces stirred. Here, in the forgotten veins of Terra, the battle for survival had only just begun. Voltal exhaled slowly, the weight of realization settling like a shroud. The aggression they sought to cure was not a flaw to be erased, but a fire forged in the crucible of existence. A fire that refused to be extinguished. The unyielding flesh of humanity had broken free. The air inside the Veridian research vessel hung thick with an unsettling stillness, like the calm before a storm that refused to announce itself. Voltal stood motionless at the observation window, his multifaceted eyes reflecting the cold blue glow of countless stars scattered across the vast blackness of space. He breathed in the sterile scent of recycled air, tinged faintly with the metallic tang of machinery. Every sense was alert. The silence was deceptive. Below, the containment chambers where the human test subjects had once been held lay empty. The warning klaxons had ceased moments ago, but the tension lingered heavily, folding around Voltal's thoughts like a tightening coil. The escape, unexpected, sudden, terrifying. Yet something deeper gnawed at him. Not merely the loss of containment or the risk to the mission, but a revelation that slithered beneath the surface, betraying itself in subtle details, the ferocity of the escape, the calculated precision, the tactical brilliance displayed by the humans. It was unlike any species he had encountered, and it unsettled him with a primal unease. The corridor leading to the science labs was scarred with chaos. Walls scorched, bulkhead consoles shattered, emergency lights flickering in uneven pulses. The smell of burnt circuitry mingled with the faint coppery scent of spilled blood. The Veridian crew had rushed to contain the breach, but the humans had vanished into the labyrinthine frigid belly of the vessel before help could arrive. Voltal's antennae twitched in subtle agitation as he processed the scene. This was no mindless flight. It was a tactical withdrawal executed with surgical precision. He recalled Vashdor's earlier report, their scientific findings reduced to sterile data streams and cold analysis. The humans, while genetically engineered to suppress aggression, had still exhibited bursts of violence. Calibrated, deliberate acts of defense and evasion. It was as if the so-called cure had not eradicated the trait, but had instead refined it into something far more dangerous. Voltal's thoughts spiraled into deeper layers. The ancient beacons scattered across the galaxy, warnings etched in quiet dread, had never spoken of mere aggression. They spoke of something grander, something primal, the sleeping giants of Terra. The stories had been dismissed, mythologized by a race eager to believe in their own superiority. But now, first-hand evidence challenged that hubris. He moved cautiously through the hallways, his footsteps a muted echo on the sterile floor. Every sense poised to detect the slightest disturbance. The ship's environmental systems hummed quietly, a mechanical heartbeat in the darkness. Voltal's gaze lingered on the shattered glass of the observation window into the containment chambers, a testament to the sheer force of the humans' escape. The magnitude of their strength was no longer theoretical. As he rounded a corner, a flicker of movement caught his eye, shadows dancing just beyond the reach of the emergency lights. His muscles tensed, ready to react, but it was only a stray ventilation panel swaying gently in the artificial breeze. Still, his mind raced with possibilities. Where had the humans gone? What were they planning? He recalled the layout of the ship from memory, the cargo bays, the engineering sectors, the maintenance tunnels. The latter were narrow, claustrophobic spaces lined with pipes and conduits, a perfect place for stealth and ambush. Voltal's instincts told him the humans would seek refuge here, using the environment to their advantage. The thought sent a shiver through him, not of cold, but of something colder still, fear. Not for himself, but for the mission's success. The humans were no longer passive subjects. They were adversaries with a lethal edge. Their tactical ferocity was a force to be reckoned with, a secret weapon born from the very aggression Veridian Biologics had sought to eliminate. He paused at a junction, lifting a communication device to his mandibles. His voice was steady but threaded with urgency. Vashdor, status report. Static crackled in response. Containment breach confirmed. Test subjects unaccounted for. Security teams are mobilizing. Recommend heightened vigilance. Voltal nodded, though Vashdor could not see the motion. Proceed with caution. These are not mere prisoners. They are strategists. A soft vibration hummed through the deck plates beneath his feet. Subtle but unmistakable, a distant echo of movement, deliberate and controlled. His antenna twitched, sensing something more than the mechanical hum of the ship. The humans were close. Drawing his sidearm, a sleek energy pistol designed for maximum precision, Voltal advanced cautiously. The corridors narrowed, shadows deepening, and the temperature dipped slightly, a byproduct of the ship's failing power grid in the wake of the breach. The scent of ozone tingled in the air, mingling with the faint musk of unwashed sweat. He could almost taste the tension. Suddenly, a flicker of motion erupted from a side tunnel, a blur of movement, swift and precise. Voltal reacted instantly, firing a pulse of concentrated energy. The beam sliced through the air, striking a wall mere centimeters from the figure that vanished into darkness. No scream followed, only the echoing footsteps retreating deeper into the ship's bowels. His heart quickened, not out of fear, for Veridian physiology was resilient to such emotions, but from the rush of adrenaline that surged when confronted with uncertainty. He narrowed his eyes, focusing intently. The humans were hunting now, but not randomly. Their actions were calculated, each movement part of a broader strategy. He recalled the ancient warnings again, the beacons scattered across the galaxy, carved with images of colossal beings wrapped in slumber beneath the surface of Terra. These images had always seemed symbolic, mythic, but now the human's behavior suggested a primal heritage, something dormant awakened within. Voltal pressed forward, navigating the labyrinthine corridors with methodical precision. The ship's internal lights flickered, casting eerie shadows that danced like specters along the walls. The hum of machinery faltered intermittently, as if the vessel itself was holding its breath. Then came the unmistakable sound, the low, guttural growl of a human voice, rough, raw, and charged with barely suppressed fury. It echoed through the ventilation shafts, vibrating the metal walls with an unnerving resonance. Voltal's antennae flattened against his head, a universal sign of caution. He moved toward the sound, heart pounding in measured rhythm. The growl was followed by the shouts of his own crew, calling out to one another, searching for the missing humans. The tension coiled tighter. The humans were not fleeing, they were engaging. At the junction of a maintenance tunnel, Voltal paused. The air here was thick with the scent of heated metal and burnt plastic. Scorch marks pocked the walls, a testament to recent conflict. The silence that followed was heavy, fraught with latent danger. Then, from the shadowed recesses, two figures emerged. Human, lithe and agile, their eyes blazing with determination. Jessica Patel led them, her gaze sharp and unwavering. Behind her, Brandon Patel moved with lethal grace, muscles coiled like springs, every step measured and deliberate. Voltal's breath hitched imperceptibly at their presence. These were not the helpless specimens he had anticipated. They were warriors, primal and cunning, born of a world shaped by relentless struggle. Jessica's eyes locked with Voltal's, unflinching, fearless. There was no room for negotiation here, only survival. Her stance was defensive, yet charged with an electric readiness. She was a commander commanding not only her troops but herself, embodying the raw spirit of the species Veridian Biologics had sought to tame. Brandon's hand hovered near his sidearm, fingers flexing in anticipation. Voltal detected the faint scent of sweat mixed with the sharp tang of adrenaline radiating from them. These humans were not broken, they were honed by conflict. A blur of motion, a flash of energy, then the echoing blast of weapon fire. Voltal dove behind a bulkhead, narrowly avoiding the searing pulse that scorched the metal where he had stood moments before. The humans advanced, moving with a tactical ferocity that defied their supposed genetic alterations. They fought with a primal intelligence, using the ship's architecture as a weapon, setting traps, exploiting every weakness. Voltal's training surged forth, his own weapon firing in rapid bursts, illuminating the dim corridor with sharp blue flashes. Each pulse met a calculated evasion, the humans weaving through the shadows like ghosts. The sound of their boots against metal was muffled, stealthy, precise. He could smell the acrid smoke of overheated circuits. Hear the distant groan of the ship's stressed infrastructure. The environment itself seemed to bend to the will of the combatants, turning into a battlefield of shadows and light. Voltal's mind raced to analyze, to predict. The humans were not just fighting for escape. They were leading him into a web, a tactical gauntlet designed to wear down, to disorient. His eyes caught a flicker to the left, a shadow shifting against the wall. He spun, firing a burst that caught the figure squarely in the chest. The human staggered, then recovered, lunging forward with a feral cry. The ferocity of the attack was primal, unyielding. Voltal braced himself against the impact, grappling with the human's raw strength. The sensation was alien, terrifying in its intensity. This was not the subdued aggression he had expected. This was something unleashed, a force of nature. He struggled free, backing away, his mind reeling. The humans were not broken. They were more alive than ever, their aggression not tamed but transformed into a weapon of survival and dominance. Jessica's voice rang out, steady and commanding, rallying her comrades. "Hold the line! Don't let them flank." The echoes of her orders reverberated through the corridors, a symphony of organized chaos. The humans moved as one, a unit forged in fire and blood, their tactical ferocity a testament to their evolutionary heritage. Voltal's gaze locked on Jessica again. In her eyes, he saw not a captive or a subject, but a warrior, a titan awakened from slumber, fierce and unstoppable. The ancient beacons had spoken true. The sleeping giants of Terra were not myth. They were a force waiting to be unleashed, and Veridian Biologics had unwittingly ignited that fury. The battle raged on, the ship trembling under the weight of conflict. Shadows clashed with light, silence shattered by the roar of weapon fire and the grunts of exertion. Voltal's thoughts churned with a single, chilling realization the cure had failed, and in its failure, it had birthed something far more terrifying. As the humans pressed their attack, exploiting every weakness, pressing every advantage, the cold truth settled over Voltal like a shroud. Terra's giants had awoken, and the galaxy would never be the same. The chill of the night pressed against the hull of the Veridian command vessel, Cerephos, as it drifted silently over the sprawling human city below. From this height, the metropolis was a sprawling web of lights, pulsing like a living organism beneath the dark sky. Voltal stood on the observation deck, his multifaceted eyes reflecting the scintillating glow of neon signs and distant fires. The scent of burnt ozone still clung faintly to the air, a reminder of the recent skirmishes that had shattered the fragile calm. But what gripped Voltal most was the inexplicable energy emanating from the city, an energy that defied the cold logic of their mission. The Veridian expedition had been straightforward. At first, identify the source of human aggression, isolate the genetic markers, and apply the advanced biochemical agents developed by Veridian Biologics to quiet the violence. But things had spiraled beyond expectation. The test subjects, humans altered to suppress aggression, had escaped containment, their behaviors unsettlingly unpredictable. Reports filtered in these humans were not subdued, they were relentless. Vashdor, the lead scientist, had been insistent. Our agents should have neutralized the aggressive sequences, he would argue, poring over data streams filled with biochemical activity charts and neurological scans. Yet the data contradicted his assumptions. Instead of a reduction, some subjects exhibited heightened responses. not just physically, but psychologically, an indomitable will that fought the chemical chains meant to bind it. Now, as Voltal surveyed the cityscape, a creeping realization settled over him: aggression was not merely a biochemical phenomenon in humans. It was a living, breathing spirit, an innate force that pulsed at their core. Below, the city was no longer the orderly grid that the maps suggested. Streets ruptured as if torn open by some subterranean force. Flames licked the edges of shattered buildings, their smoky tendrils rising into the night. The hum of Veridian drones patrolling overhead was intermittent, sporadic, their sensors struggling to keep pace with the chaotic movements beneath. Jessica Patel, the human commander leading the resistance, moved through the wreckage with a fierce determination that set her apart from the others. Her face, streaked with dirt and sweat, bore the marks of countless battles. Her eyes scanned the horizon, searching for threats, but also for signs of hope. To Voltal, watching through surveillance feeds, she was a beacon, an embodiment of human resilience. Inside the makeshift command center, nestled deep within the ruins of what had once been a government building, Jessica's voice crackled through the comms, steady yet tinged with fatigue. She was coordinating her forces, strategizing how to protect pockets of survivors, and pushing back against the Veridian incursion. Brandon Patel, her younger brother and a skilled soldier, moved beside her, his youthful vigor complementing her seasoned leadership. Voltal's gaze shifted from the city to the holographic display before him, a 3D model of the affected zones. Red zones indicated intense conflict, yellow suggested unstable areas, green marked relative calm. But these colors were deceptive. The red zones pulsed with an almost organic rhythm, as if the city itself breathed in anger. Vashdor appeared beside Voltal, his typically impassive expression now shadowed by concern. "Commander, the biochemical suppression is failing. The subject's neurotransmitters are adapting, evolving even. They emit signals that interfere with our agents. It's as if the aggression is learning." Voltal nodded, the weight of command heavy on his shoulders. "Then we are not dealing with a simple genetic trait. This is something deeper, something cultural, perhaps even spiritual." Vashdor scoffed lightly. "Spirituality is irrelevant. This is evolution, rapid, unpredictable. The human mind is far more complex than we anticipated." But Voltal's thoughts were elsewhere. He recalled the ancient beacons scattered across the galaxy, their warnings etched in myth and data alike. "Beware the sleepers on Terra. Do not awaken the giants." The giants had not just awakened. They had risen with a ferocity that defied containment. Suddenly, the observation deck's transparent wall shimmered as a new alert flashed across the interface. A group of escapees had been sighted moving toward the industrial sector, their numbers growing with each report. The sensor feeds showed figures darting through the shadows. Human forms, but something more. Their movements were precise, coordinated, almost predatory. Voltal's antennae twitched with anticipation. "Prepare the intercept units. We cannot allow them to regroup." The vessel's engines hummed to life, and a fleet of sleek Veridian assault crafts descended toward the city. The air was thick with tension, the scent of burning plastic and scorched earth mingling with the metallic tang of ozone. As the crafts neared the industrial sector, the scene unfolded in vivid detail. Factories, once churning with production, now lay in ruins. Smoke billowed from collapsed roofs, and the ground was littered with debris. Twisted metal, shattered glass, and the remnants of machinery. Yet amidst this devastation, movement persisted, The escapees emerged from the shadows, their eyes gleaming with a fierce light. Jessica Patel led them, her presence magnetic, drawing others to her side. She moved with a purposeful grace, a predator on the hunt, yet tempered by a soldier's discipline. Brandon followed closely, his youthful energy palpable. Voltal observed the tactical formations they employed, fluid, adaptive, and brutally effective. Their voices rose in coordinated shouts, rallying cries that echoed against the ruined structures. The air vibrated with the sound of footsteps pounding the earth, the clash of weapons, and the raw, unyielding spirit of those who refused to be broken. The Veridian assault crafts unleashed volleys of plasma fire, the vibrant blue bolts tearing through the night. Explosions rocked the factories, sending clouds of dust and flame skyward. The escapees scattered, weaving through the chaos with uncanny agility. Some ducked behind crumbling walls, others launched counterattacks with makeshift weapons and guerrilla tactics honed by desperation. Jessica's voice cut through the din, sharp and commanding. She orchestrated the defense with a strategist's mind and a warrior's heart. Brandon engaged a squadron of Veridian Marines, his movements swift and lethal. Each swing of his blade, each calculated shot, was a testament to the relentless spirit that drove them. Voltal's senses honed in on the subtle shifts in energy, the surge of adrenaline, the ebb and flow of fear and hope mingling in the human psyche. It was unlike anything he had encountered before. The aggression they sought to suppress was not destructive for destruction's sake. It was a weapon wielded in defense, in survival. Amidst the battle, a sudden tremor shook the ground. The factories groaned, steel beams twisting as if alive. From beneath the rubble, a low, resonant vibration emanated, an ancient pulse awakening. Voltal's antenna quivered involuntarily. The legend spoke of subterranean giants slumbering beneath Terra's surface, but he had dismissed them as myth. Yet now, the earth itself seemed to respond to the conflict above. The Veridian crafts faltered, their sensors disrupted by the seismic waves. The escapees seized the moment, intensifying their assault. Jessica led a charge through the heart of the industrial complex, pushing Veridian forces back step by step. Vashdor's voice was tense as he reported from the science deck. "Commander, seismic activity is increasing rapidly. We may be triggering something beneath the surface. The implications are unprecedented." Voltal made a decision. Withdraw the assault units. Prepare for emergency extraction. We must understand what we have awakened before we are overwhelmed. The crafts pulled back, plasma fire ceasing as the battle ebbed into a tense standoff. The city held its breath as the ground rumbled ominously. Below, Jessica paused atop a pile of rubble, her chest heaving. Her gaze lifted toward the horizon where the earth cracked open, revealing a vast cavern illuminated by bioluminescent flora. From the depths, enormous shapes stirred, gigantic forms covered in moss and stone, their eyes glowing with ancient intelligence. Brandon stood beside her, awe and fear mingling in his expression. "They're real," he whispered. The relentless spirit that drove them had awakened more than just human resistance. It had stirred the giants themselves. Voltal watched through the ship's sensors as the giants rose, their movements slow but unstoppable. The legends had warned of their power. Now he understood. The aggression Veridian Biologics sought to cure was but a spark of a larger force, one intertwined with the very fabric of Terra's life. The giants moved with purpose, their immense forms shaking the ground. The escapees rallied around them, their aggression now a shared will, a force impossible to suppress. Voltal felt the weight of his failure, the stark truth laid bare. The Veridian attempt to cure human aggression had not extinguished it, it had ignited a firestorm. As the giants advanced toward the Veridian fleet, the sky above the city blazed with the fire of conflict renewed. The relentless spirit of humanity, raw, untamed, and fiercely alive, had awakened a power beyond imagination. In that moment, Voltal understood the third revelation: aggression was not a flaw to be cured, but a vital force of survival and resistance. It was the heartbeat of Terra itself, the fierce, indomitable pulse that had awakened the giants and challenged the stars. The Veridian command vessel trembled as the giant's footsteps approached, the ancient warning echoing in Voltal's mind, a caution ignored with perilous consequence. The relentless spirit had risen, and it would not be silenced. The air was thick with tension, taut as a drawn bowstring stretched across the Veridian battleground. The once pristine research complex, nestled deep within the dense forests of Terra, now lay fractured and smoldering, its sterile corridors shattered by chaos. The scent of burnt circuitry mingled with the pungent musk of damp earth and crushed foliage, an unsettling blend that clung to every breath drawn by the wary Veridian soldiers. Voltal stood at the precipice of the central chamber, his multifaceted eyes fixed on the holographic display hovering before him. The glowing map flickered erratically, data streams veering wildly as the system struggled to process the rapidly evolving situation. The test subjects, humans, once docile under the influence of Veridian bioweapons designed to dampen aggression, had broken free, shattering their cages and defenses in a fury of raw, unrestrained violence. Vashdor, the lead scientist, paced nearby, his elongated limbs twitching with nervous energy. His voice was a low hum beneath the rising din of alarms, a thread of disbelief tangled with panic. This was not anticipated. The genetic modifications should have subdued their instincts. Instead, they have amplified them. Voltal's antenna twitched, sensing the deeper currents of fear beneath Vashdor's words. The Terra project was their flagship endeavor, a promise of peace through scientific dominion over the most volatile aspects of human nature. Yet now, the very subjects of their experiments were turning the tables, becoming a force neither Veridian intellect nor technology could easily contain. Beyond the reinforced glass walls, the forest surged like a living entity reclaiming its domain. Trees groaned under the weight of unseen forces, their branches clawing at the sky in desperate defiance. A distant rumble echoed through the valley, a low, primal growl that seemed to reverberate from the bones of the planet itself. Jessica Patul moved with lethal purpose through the shattered remnants of the facility, her breath steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. The bioweapon meant to pacify her species had failed, unleashing instead something far more dangerous, a suppressed ferocity born from the depths of human survival. She felt it now, a surging tide within her blood, a pulse that connected her to the others who had broken free alongside her. The memories were fragmented yet vivid: the cold metal walls, the sterile scent of antiseptics, the hum of Veridian machinery operating with clinical precision, and then the awakening. The moment the suppression failed, they had become predators, not prey. Jessica's hands clenched around her weapon, her senses sharpening as she navigated the labyrinth of corridors, each step a calculated risk. Outside, the ground quaked beneath the slow but inexorable movements of colossal forms emerging from the depths of Terra's crust. The ancient beacons, silent for millennia, now pulsed faintly in resonance with the awakening giants. These were the sleeping titans of legend, creatures whose power and fury had once shaped the destiny of the planet itself. The Veridians had dismissed the warnings etched in the stars, blinded by hubris and their belief in scientific mastery. Voltol's mind raced as he processed the data streaming in from peripheral sensors. The giants moved with a terrible grace, their massive limbs parting the forest like waves breaking against a shore. Each step sent tremors through the soil, uprooting centuries-old trees and sending flocks of creatures into panicked flight. The sheer scale of their awakening was a force beyond comprehension, a cataclysm rolling steadily toward the surface. We underestimated them, Voltol admitted, his voice a low rumble. Their aggression was not a flaw to be cured, but a survival mechanism woven into the very fabric of their being. Vashdor's gaze hardened. The bioweapon accelerated the process. Their suppressed rage became a catalyst. The alterations we introduced triggered an evolutionary response, one we cannot control. Behind them, the alarms reached a crescendo as the facility's automated defenses engaged. Turrets swiveling on mechanical joints unleashed cascades of brilliant plasma bolts into the advancing humans. Yet the soldiers pressed forward, weaving between blasts with unnerving agility, their movements synchronized, a brutal ballad of instinct and desperation. Jessica felt the sting of a near miss grazing her shoulder, the heat of the plasma searing through her armor. She gritted her teeth, pushing onward. The Veridian technology was formidable, but the human spirit, fueled now by an uncontrollable fire, was fiercer. Every pulse of pain, every narrow escape, only stoked the inferno inside her. The walls trembled as one of the giants broke through the canopy, a towering figure swathed in stone like armor and glowing veins of molten energy. Its eyes, ancient and unknowable, flickered with a primal intelligence as it surveyed the battlefield. The beacons around the facility flickered in a synchronized pattern, their signals intertwining with the giant's awakening essence. Voltol's comm unit crackled with urgent transmissions from the command ship orbiting high above Terra. The Veridian fleet had halted, caught in the gravitational pull of unforeseen consequences. The Supreme Council demanded immediate extraction, but Voltol knew retreat was no longer an option. The ancient legends were not myth. They were warnings etched in cosmic memory. The sleeping giants were the planet's guardians, awakened now by the turbulence wrought by alien interference. Their fury was a reckoning, a reminder that some forces were beyond control or cure. Jessica's squad reached the facility's central control node, a stark chamber bathed in eerie blue light. The consoles flickered as systems came back online, struggling against the damage inflicted during the escape. Her fingers danced across the interface, overriding shutdown protocols with practiced precision. Outside, the tremors intensified. The ground buckled as the giants' steps drew nearer, each one a symphony of destruction and raw power. The forest was no longer a dense refuge, but a battlefield scarred by titanic conflict. Vashdor's voice cut through the static of Voltol's comm. "Commander, the bioweapon's influence is extending beyond the test subjects. The aggression gene is spreading through the local fauna, infecting the ecosystem itself. This is no longer a containment breach. It's an ecological upheaval." Voltol's compound eyes blinked in disbelief. The bioweapon had mutated the planet's life forms, turning the very environment into a hostile force. The Veridian scientific arrogance had unleashed a catalyst for planetary chaos. "Jessica, you must evacuate immediately," he ordered through the comm. "The giants cannot be stopped. We cannot contain the outbreak. But Jessica's response was a steady, unwavering silence. She understood now that fleeing would mean abandoning Terra to its fate. A fate intertwined with these ancient beings, awakened by the Veridian's folly. The chamber's floor vibrated violently as the nearest giant breached the facility's perimeter. Massive fingers tore through reinforced walls with terrifying ease, the sound a grinding crescendo of crushed metal and shattering stone. The air grew heavy with the scent of ozone and scorched earth, mingling with the metallic tang of spilled blood and burning flesh. Jessica steadied her breath, her heart pounding in unison with the rhythmic pounding of the giant's steps. She raised her weapon not in attack but as a symbol of defiance, a human assertion of will against an indifferent cosmos. Around her, the remaining test subjects gathered, their bodies marked by the veins of bioweapon-induced mutation, their eyes wild with the unleashed aggression that had broken their chains. They were no longer victims. They were the vanguard of a new epoch, a resurgence of primal force that the galaxy had failed to anticipate. Voltol watched from the observation deck, his thoughts a storm of regret and awe. The Veridian Empire had sought to tame human aggression through science, to mold it like clay in their hands. Instead, they had ignited a firestorm that awakened the ancient giants slumbering beneath Terra's surface. Giants whose wrath would echo across the stars. As the colossal form of the waking Titan filled the chamber's entrance, Jessica felt the surge within her reach a crescendo. The planet itself seemed to pulse with life, its heartbeat matching the thunderous steps of its colossal sentinel. The Veridian project had failed spectacularly, but in that failure lay a profound truth: the aggression was not a flaw to be eradicated, but a core element of life's relentless drive to endure and evolve. Terra's giants were the embodiment of that truth, titanic forces awakened by the very spark the Veridians had tried to extinguish. In the shadow of the awakening giants, humanity's indomitable spirit roared back to life, wild, fierce, and unbroken. The galaxy would remember this day, the day the sleeping giants rose, and with them, the primal fire of Terra's true legacy. The sky hung low over Veridian Prime, heavy with the thick, ever-present haze of its biosphere. Faint, electric blue veins of bioluminescent flora pulsed slowly across the dense jungle canopy, casting eerie glows that flickered like distant stars caught in the toilet forest. The scent of damp moss mixed with the acrid tang of ionized metal from the recent firefight, a stark reminder of the chaos that had unfolded mere hours before. Rain began to drizzle soft, cold droplets that seeped into the soil and silenced the sharp crackle of tension that had filled the air. Commander Valdel crouched amidst the undergrowth, his iridescent carapace slick with moisture, eyes narrowing as he scanned the darkened horizon. The sounds of the jungle had returned in waves, the low, rhythmic hum of insectoid wings, the distant croak of amphibious creatures, and the faint rustling of unseen fauna reclaiming the terrain. These natural symphonies contrasted sharply with the memory of the violent confrontation that had burst through this tranquility. Yet, the most profound disturbance was not the external environment, but the shift within Voltol himself. He thought back to the first moment they had encountered the escaped human test subjects, brilliant, baffling, and terrifying in equal measure. Their aggression was not simply an impulsive outburst or primal rage, but a complex, multifaceted force woven into their very being. The Veridian scientists, led by Vashdor, had sought to synthesize a cure, an intervention to erase what they perceived as a dangerous flaw. but in trying to excise such an intrinsic element, they had only succeeded in awakening something far greater. The humans had not succumbed to docility. They had transcended it. Jessica Patel, the human commander, had led her people with a fierce grace that both confounded and impressed Voltol. She embodied the paradox they had failed to understand. Aggression as survival, yes, but also as creativity, courage, and unyielding hope. The test subject's escape was not a failure of containment. It was a revelation. Voltol shifted his weight, muscles tensing beneath his exoskeleton. The jungle's mist wrapped around him like a shroud. Yet he felt exposed, vulnerable in ways alien to his species' disciplined nature. The Veridian Empire had always approached conflict with precision and control. But these humans defied neat categorization. They were unpredictable, volatile, and perhaps in their own way wiser. The memories played like a vivid tapestry behind his multifaceted eyes. The initial breach of the containment facility, the frantic alarms, the staccato bursts of plasma fire lighting up the sterile corridors with blue-white flares. Voltol had led the retrieval squad, navigating the maze of corridors with practiced efficiency. Yet, each encounter with the escaped subjects was a new lesson in adaptability. Jessica and her team moved with uncanny synchronization, their tactics fluid and responsive, their aggression tempered by strategy. One memory stood out sharply. The moment Jessica confronted Voltol directly, her eyes blazing with a determination that pierced beyond species and protocol. There was no hatred there, no malice, only a fierce will to protect her own kind. In that instant, Voltol had glimpsed the essence of human aggression, not as a flaw to be eradicated, but as a force to be respected. The rain intensified, drumming against the broad leaves overhead, and the metallic plating of Voltol's armor. Cool water mixed with the warm sweat on his skin, grounding him in the present. He allowed himself a brief moment of introspection. It was clear now that the Veridian approach had been flawed. Their scientific hubris had blinded them to the complexity of human nature. Instead of curing aggression, they had unleashed a potent catalyst for change. In the aftermath of the chaos, a treaty had been proposed, not one born of victory or submission, but from mutual recognition. The Veridian Empire would cease its attempts to chemically suppress human behavior. In return, humanity would share knowledge, technology, and insights into their unique evolutionary path. It was a fragile accord, teetering on the edge of uncertainty, but one infused with cautious optimism. Voltol rose from the underbrush, the weight of his thoughts pressing against his chest. The jungle stretched endlessly before him, an ancient, living testament to the resilience of life. He glanced skyward, where the twin moons cast pale silver light through the thinning clouds. In that celestial glow, he saw a reflection of the new dawn breaking over interstellar relations. As he moved toward the Rendezvous point, the sounds of the camp emerged. A low murmur of voices, the clinking of tools, the crackle of energy fields stabilizing the perimeter. Human and Veridian alike worked side by side, a sight once unimaginable. Brandon Patel, the young soldier who had fought beside his sister, offered a nod of acknowledgement as their eyes met briefly. There was no need for words. The shared experience had forged a bond beyond language. Voltol's thoughts drifted to Vashdor, the scientist whose ambition had sparked the entire ordeal. The Veridian biologist had been forced to reconsider his assumptions about aggression. What began as a quest to eradicate what was perceived as a social ill had evolved into an exploration of identity, freedom, and coexistence. Vashtor's meticulous notes now contained records not only of biochemical pathways, but of cultural nuances and emotional depth that transcended their empirical origins. The forest around them seemed alive with possibility. Small creatures skittered through the underbrush, their movements a delicate dance of survival. The air was thick with the scent of earth and growing things, a reminder that life persisted through struggle and adaptation. So, too, the fragile alliance forged in the crucible of conflict hinted at a future where species might learn from each other rather than dominate. Suddenly, a distant rumble vibrated through the ground, a low, resonant pulse that reverberated in Voltal's chest. His antennae twitched, attuned to the subtle shifts in the environment. The ancient beacons, the mysterious artifacts scattered across Terra, had awakened once more. Their silent warnings no longer mere echoes of forgotten history, but active signals of a power long dormant. Voltal felt a surge of awe tempered by resolve. The giants beneath the planet's surface were stirring, their slumber threatened by the recent upheavals. Yet, humanity's aggression was not simply a danger. It was a force that might be harnessed to meet this new challenge. The very qualities they sought to suppress could become the keys to survival. The camp fell into a tentative quiet as night deepened. Fires flickered in carefully tended pits, casting dancing shadows on the faces of those gathered. Voltal observed the humans as they shared stories, their laughter mingling with the crackle of burning wood. The warmth of their camaraderie was a balm to the wounds inflicted by conflict. He allowed himself a rare moment of hope. Perhaps this was the genesis of a new chapter, not only for the Veridian and human peoples, but for the galaxy itself. A chapter in which understanding replaced fear, cooperation supplanted conquest. The path ahead would be fraught with challenges, but the potential for growth and unity was undeniable. Voltal's gaze settled on the horizon, where the first hints of dawn began to dissolve the night's darkness. The sky blushed with soft hues of orange and violet, heralding the promise of renewal. The scent of rain mingled with the fresh aroma of new leaves, a sensory tapestry that spoke of life's perpetual cycle. In that moment, Voltal felt the weight of history and the fragile hope of the future converging. The escape of the human test subjects had been more than an incident. It was a catalyst, a turning point that redefined what it meant to be a species, to be a community, to be sentient. Aggression was not a flaw to suppress, but an element of existence to understand and respect. He turned away from the camp and began the journey back to the Veridian command ship, the jungle slowly awakening around him. The echoes of the past mingled with the anticipation of what was to come. The galaxy was vast and filled with unknowns, but now, for the first time in memory, there was a chance for true dialogue between worlds. As Voltal walked beneath the towering trees, the gentle patter of rain soothing the earth beneath his feet, he felt the stirrings of a quiet determination. The Veridian Empire would learn, and together with humanity, they might forge a future where the sleeping giants of Terra would no longer be a threat but a shared legacy, a testament to resilience and unity. The sun rose fully now, spilling golden light across the canopy, illuminating the path forward. Voltal's steps echoed with purpose as he embraced the dawn of a new era, one born not of conquest, but of understanding.